Okay, I just hit record, and I'm with Faye Whyte, a phenomenal dialoguer. Who's have you been part of the community since the beginning?
Yes, I
You
have.
have,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
have,
I have.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
You were part of that insane
Yep. Early
like
adopter.
3 month course that I did
Oh,
to
yeah.
kick
Yeah.
everything off.
Actually, that was really fun.
I'm
We got to
glad.
do something like that again where we talk every week.
Oh man, I looked back on it. I'm like, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good. For me to figure out what to do and what not to do. I loved talking to y'all, but I think I was doing 5 videos a week. It was a little nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you kind of
Mhm.
over scheduled yourself a little
Yeah,
bit
I came out of the gate, all
because
guns
that
blazing.
never happens to you, right?
No, I never set too high an expectation. Yeah, so thanks for doing this with me today. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Oh,
it. I
thank
kind of
you.
just want to hang
Thanks.
out with you. We have to do a session, but I kind of just
Yeah,
I
I
just want to
guess.
hang out
Yeah.
with Faye. Um, okay, so
Yep.
we're looking at a new POV character.
Yep. Yep.
Before we get there, talk to me about where this book is at.
So I have a second draftish that completely stalled in the middle of 2022.
Yeah,
And I think I actually closed the Scrivener file and reopened it to make sure that I got this to you in time for this week. So I haven't looked at the book at all, and all I did to pick the scene was I started at the beginning and I went, that scene's not bad, that one's not bad, oh, that one's really bad, and that's the one I
nice,
sent you.
awesome.
So
Yeah, yeah, and we were talking about I'm not going to make you relive any trauma, but we were talking about before we got on the call just how crappy for many of us
yep,
2022 was, and like how
yep.
hard it's been to write and focus in 2022.
Yeah,
So
there was too much mental bandwidth spent on life events last year for sure.
yeah, yeah, and emotional bandwidth. I find that
Oh
like
yeah.
it's really the emotional, like
Yep.
I can't like bring myself to think about writing emotional stuff after like having emotional
Yep.
stuff in my own life. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm really excited that we get to
Oh
kick this back
yeah,
off.
me too.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay.
So when you send it to me, let's do a quick overview of what it is and what you're looking for. So you talked to me about when you sent it to me. This is a scene with your protagonist coming into an interrogation with police officers, and it's a big cast scene. There's 5 people in the room at all
Yeah,
times.
whoops. I didn't even realize that till you told me.
I could tell that you really want it to be a conversation between this guy Charlie and Trudy, your protagonist. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is a
Yeah.
big cast scene, and you were saying, or Carter, not Charlie, Carter,
Carter. Yeah.
and you were saying that you wanted the cops to be more intimidating.
Well, this is her first scene, her first POV scene in the book.
Okay.
So I do need to really kind of, you know, showcase her.
Yeah.
But she's also a character that has a couple secrets that need to be revealed later. So I was really stuck with how to do that. And then I realized that my police are just, sitting in cheap suits in the back corner eating takeout food. And that was probably way too stereotypical and way too,
It's really funny.
way
Um,
too inappropriate.
yeah, no, it's great. So I mean, it's great. It's fine. You're just not utilizing them. Like
Yeah.
it's fine that they're there. You're just not utilizing them. You're not using them strategically to advance her character.
Yeah.
Um, talk to me
That was
about her. Oh yeah, go
that,
ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm sorry. That was very kind of you.
Talk to me about her and how you want her to present to the reader. Who is
So,
she?
okay, so she's a liaison between the people with powers who are in this world are basically controlled very highly. They're regulated, they have to register. And
And
she's
by
kind of,
powers, you mean superpowers, just to
yeah,
clear that up.
superpowers.
I
Yeah,
know, but for anybody
yeah,
listening,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and she's kind of a liaison who's going to work, kind of to make sure that everybody's registered and everybody's following the rules they're supposed to follow. But she's also so spoiler alert. She's also a sleeper, actually working with them secretly.
Oh,
And this is her first introduction into the town. And I want her to play against Carter because he's like Mr. Suave, charming
gotcha.
fellow. And I want her to kind of not overtly resist it, but to kind of stand up to him a little bit, but try and do it very quietly.
Okay. So
I don't
more
know if that.
like, yeah, like internal resistance, external charm from her.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's yeah, but I don't want her to be snarky because she's kind of in her mid 40s and
Okay. So
more.
serious. Is she just kind of over it? Is that kind of the personality you want her to have? Like, oh God, not this again type.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And she also just wants to she wants to get into the town, get her task over with and get back home. Like this is an assignment that she doesn't really want.
Okay. So very like Tia Leone and Madam Secretary, where she's just like kind of, you know, weathered in experience and
Hmm.
like I don't really have time for this bull crap, but I have to be professional on the
Yeah,
exterior with you. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so now that I know that, let's walk through it a little bit. And I think like we said, what I'm really going to encourage you to do is you utilize all five of your characters in order to help the reader get to know Trudy. I don't
Okay.
actually care about the cops. Like, how often does this guy Alex actually show up in the plot?
Oh, the
Chief
chief
of
of
detectives.
detectives, couple times, like
Okay.
just to kind of be a
Yeah, so he's more a hazard character than he is
yeah,
like somebody we're
yeah,
going to try to connect with or relate to.
yeah, yeah. We
Um,
don't really need to know much about him.
yeah, how much does Carter show up?
He is going to be the villain.
Mm. So we do need to connect to him. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a very brief appearance by Daniel, who will also be an antagonist to one of the other point of view characters.
Okay. So what I feel like in general, where all my notes were geared, your dialogue's fantastic as always. Like your
Oh,
dialogue's
thanks.
spot on. Character voices are good. I can tell that you've got like your Carter character voice and Trudy character voice are really strong. And they're very different, which is nice.
Okay.
I want but you're missing opportunities for Trudy to really reveal to the reader who she is, since she's the one we care about. So
Yeah.
this opening was kind of the first one I saw.
Hmm.
You have a great description of the room, right? Young Laura scurried across the prosecutor's office with armloads of biters and laptops. 7 perfectly groomed plants stood along the corner, silhouetted against the dark windows. The phones, with quiet but particular insistent sound, never stopped as midnight approached. And underneath it all, the printers beeped and pitched out a page, out, sorry, out page after page of important legal bullshit. Trudy stood stifled and yawned when the conference room door opened. So you don't tell me how she feels about this,
Hmm.
or really, you don't position her in this room, right? Like you give me this room and then she kind of appears in a corner of it. Um, this is a great opportunity to give me some insight into who she is, into what she feels like a sentence like and underneath it all, burped and pitched out page after page of very important legal bullshit. In her 20s, Trudy might have found this room exciting and energetic, but now she was just exhausted by it. Right? Like that kind of like, or in her 20s, she might have found this room, um, on this room might have lit a fire in her gut too, blah, 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 blah. But now she'd take sitting on the couch in her pajamas any day. Right. But you can see how like those two different
Yep.
how I ended those two sentences really change our perception of her.
Yep.
And that's, I think, there's several spaces in here where I was like, oh, like here, we see Carter Thomason. Miss Baxter, thanks so much for your patience. With the dark goatee and a grin of a pickup artist, he came toward her, hand out. He was handsome and he knew it. Carter Thomason, we met Bauer come in. I just want one more sentence there about how she feels about the fact that he's handsome and neat, because it's not actually about him, it's about her. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, these are and I figured that that was when I read it before I sent it to you this time, I was like, oh, there's like no emotion at all.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's true. You've got great descriptions for her, right? Like Trudy smiled and took his hand. He pressed her fingers a little too firmly, a heartbeat too long. Damn, it was going to be like this again. Like that's great. Like you've got strong emotions in there. We're missing some of her characterization. I didn't feel like I really knew her until I got to page 3. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, I know who she is. But I'd like to know up here so I can enjoy the experience with her. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yep. Yep. Makes sense.
And it's a weird thing because you don't want to be like Trudy, a 45-year-old liaison to the blah blah blah, who's had 3 kids in a life of like you don't. That's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I think when I first read it, I started to picture a younger,
Yeah.
introvert, and then I think I got to like down here where she starts talking to the cops, and I'm like, oh no, she's got some experience under her belt. And then I was like, oh, I misread her at the beginning. So
Okay.
I think there's a reader burden thing there that helps.
Okay.
Yeah. I loved your entrance of Chief Detective Alex Sullivan is great. A bulldog faced man dressed in a police uniform sat and stared, hands folded on the table. Um, how do you want her responding to these cops? What do you want their relationship to be?
She's gonna assume that they will be antagonistic towards her.
Okay,
Um, and she's not gonna go out of her way to ingratiate herself,
gotcha. Okay,
but she'll try and just be, kind of professional and ignore it if she can.
gotcha. So, are you using inner thoughts in the book at all, or is it all just third person close? Like, are you
No, I
using italics to give like her an inner thought voice?
italics.
I know. I hope you read the disdain on my face when I said. Just kidding.
I do not use italics for that
Okay,
purpose.
I'm
Um,
warming up to it. I'm warming up to it.
I try to get them in. Like I know that with her, she's so underdeveloped that and part of this was just the draft the way I left it.
Yeah,
So
I would. Yeah,
I would add some stuff like
if you were going to use them for her, this is a place where I'd put them in. But
okay,
if you're not using them, don't add them.
okay,
We do need something here about she walks in and takes in the people in the conference room.
okay,
Right. We've already taken in Carter, and we're gonna put a line up here about how she feels about Carter. We know how she feels about the environment she's in, right? Like maybe
yeah,
it's like, this room, like the 1,000 others she'd been in, all felt the same to her and all looked the same, right? Like so we know
mhm,
how she feels about the scenery, we know how she feels about Carter. Here's a great place to tell us how she feels about these cops.
okay,
And
yep,
if you want to set up that antagonistic relationship right away, she was like, I'd put something like a couple men in nondescript picked out suits picked at takeout containers spread along the far end of the table. A bulldog faced man in a police dress uniform sat and stared, hands folded on the table. And I'd have her think something like, or not think, but you know, she could tell that this was gonna, or she sighed as she knew that this was gonna be a fight,
hmm
or she sighed and knew that this was just looking at them. She could tell this was going to be a tug of war from the beginning, or something that comments on like, okay, she looks at these people and like set us up with her emotional state from the beginning. Does that make sense?
yep,
Yeah. I just want this is our chief of detectives, Alex Sullivan. You just had that kind of sitting out there because you've introduced now 3 new
3 more
people.
people. Yeah,
I don't know who says this. It could be
okay,
one of the guys in the back. It could be.
yep.
It's not going to be Alex because that would be weird if he's like,
Mhm.
"This is our detective Alex Sullivan," right? Like if he's like, "I am," but
Played by Will Ferrell. Yeah.
that's right. Played by Will Ferrell. He only speaks in the third person. Um, yeah. So with a
Okay.
shaved
Yep.
head. That would be great. But yeah, we just need to notice who this is. And again, like when you know who it is, take advantage of it and tell us
Yep.
how Trudy feels about it. Right.
Okay.
Like,
Yep.
yeah. And I don't know if Trudy wanted to punch his face. That's how I felt about him.
Okay.
So yeah. Now that we're into the conversation here, it gets really strong.
Okay.
Right. So the back and forth is really great. You get this guy Daniel out of the room,
Yep.
which is nice. But now, once he leaves, you're left with 5. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No, no, I'm
Okay.
just nodding.
So for each segment, we need to hear from all 5.
Okay.
Right. So, and because you want them trying to intimidate her and to her grow exhausted by it, and because these are hazard characters, these 3 cops aren't coming around a lot more. I would exaggerate and almost make their intimidation tactics feel ridiculous to her. Right. Like, so for example, you got it. Carter closed the door behind Daniel, my senior assistant, good man. He retook his place at the table from behind the papers. So, Miss Baxter, may I call you Trudy? I want to talk about that line in a second. But when he takes his place behind the binder, I'd have them all move. Right. Like, the chief sat still in his, because you're setting up the first segment. You're like, okay, now we're going to enter into this first piece of conversation. So, and I would have them do some stupid things, like have one of the guys with containers come and stand behind her in like this intentional,
Yeah.
like, weird, why are you behind me back there? And like have another one place place a
Okay.
dictaphone on the table and turn it on. And like all of these things that they do to like
Okay.
intimidate somebody. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you add a note in there? Do you mind?
No, no,
'Cause
no.
otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah, yeah. I'll send you a recording of this. But
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
will
All
put a
right.
note in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'll send you the recording.
okay.
Um, but yeah, let me drop. Yeah, that'll be faster than me dropping notes because otherwise
Okay,
this
that's
will
fine.
take 2 hours because I'll just keep writing.
You
Don't,
can write the scene for me.
yeah, Faye, don't let me touch my keyboard. Don't let me
Okay.
touch my keyboard.
Okay.
We'll be here for a day.
All
Um,
right. So
yeah.
yeah, so get them to move around and get the two
Yes.
guys in suits to kind of come over and kind of loom a little bit.
Yep. Set up the segment for me. Get it like reset the room like you did up here. Right?
Okay.
You set the room up here. You gave me a good feel for it. We moved into the conference room. You set up the conference room kind of pre-discussion here, right? You
Hmm.
start this new segment, which are introductions and Daniel leaving,
Hmm.
which is a really strong. And then we're coming here to the end of a segment, right? He
Yeah.
suggests a restaurant. Carter's like, you got it, right?
Okay.
And then Carter closes the door behind Daniel. So this is if we're breaking up the segments,
Okay.
my good assist my senior assistant good man. Actually, I'd put that back with the last segment. So that's the end of your first segment,
Okay.
or actually technically your second segment because she had a mini segment in there. This is the start of your next segment.
Okay.
He took his place at the head of the table behind papers and binders.
Okay.
And then there's a couple places you can set up the next segment here. So, Miss Baxter, may I call you Trudy? Of course, Carter. You might have them move here, right? The 2 detectives, noticing that the room was noticing that the tone of the room had shifted. The 2 detectives munching on takeout took their positions. One sat across from me and exaggeratedly put a dictaphone in the middle of the table as I rolled my eyes. The other
Hmm.
decided to take his takeout container and move behind me.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I pretended not to see him, right? Like whatever. Or you may want it to be like, I've seen these Mickey Mouse tactics 1,000 times, and I wish that we could just skip past all of this stuff, right?
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
something in here to get them. Now, if you really want to exaggerate the Alex character, this is where he would talk, right? Like, so Miss Baxter, may I call you Trudy? Of course, Carter. You can be like, let's get this interview started. It's time to like he's going to want to try to take control. If you want to exaggerate his character, because right now he pretty much just sits in silence. So if
Hmm.
you want to exaggerate his character, have him try to take control of the room here.
Okay.
Because Carter is clearly starting the meeting. So having Alex do something like, all right, time to start this meeting, and then have his two men move makes him feel more like, you know,
He's the boss.
yeah,
Mhm.
sledgehammery. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep. Totally.
Yeah. What's nice about the scene that you've set up is you've got these really great tools here to work with, right? To make this scene a lot of fun, not just like information gathering about who Trudy is, but also just entertaining for the reader as she deals with these, you know, Carter, who's smarmy, and then these three kind of buffoony guys that like three Keystone cops kind of bopping
Mhm.
around. Yeah. Um, so we need to smooth this beat out. Like if you decide to put Alex and his goons moving around up here, then
Mhm.
you'll have to smooth this beat out because she says, of course, Carter. And he says, well, that was quite the first day for you, wasn't it? There's a
Mhm.
natural disconnect between here and here.
Okay.
Can you feel that?
Yep.
Yeah, he's kind of starting something new here. If you don't want to put the cops here, another way you could do it is be like, well, he leaned back and swiveled in his chair toward her, chuckling. That was quite a first day for you, wasn't it? We just need a bigger like motion to like we're now transitioning into this is the actual like meat of the segment. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep.
Once we get into the meat of the segment here, we really don't want anything but body language, movement, and them talking, which you do a good job of.
Mhm.
But this is that place where it's like, all right, now we're locking in to
Okay.
what's going on.
Yep.
Um, so you have him, he says, he makes this statement about oh, sorry, you have him making this statement and kind of chuckling like we're all in this together. And then here you have the foodies move in. But we're in the middle of the segment now.
So we're moving that up. That
Yeah, so we're gonna pop this up here or up here.
okay.
Um, and don't just have them move to the table. Like I was saying, use them
Yeah.
strategically. Put them,
Okay.
have them try their like intimidation tactics, and make sure you tell us how she feels about those.
Okay, for sure.
Um, so here we need, and we're in the middle of this segment, and this is where I want you to start thinking of it as a big cast scene.
Okay.
And it's actually what you're writing as a chorus scene because you have two faceless people in it. So you've
Yep.
got Trudy, Chief Sullivan, Carter, and then you've got your chorus of your two, Yahoo detectives that
Okay.
don't actually ever speak.
So for them, it's going to mostly be body language
All
then?
body language.
Okay.
And you only want them showing up like once a segment. You don't want them popping up very often.
Okay. What are they more likely to respond to Chief Sullivan or to something Trudy says or does?
That is your choice. What does it say to you about them if they're responding to Chief Sullivan?
That they're just sucking up and doing their, doing what they need to do.
What does it say to you if they're responding to Trudy?
That they actually think that she's a problem.
Yeah. So, which way do you want to go with the scene?
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. More attention if they respond to her.
Yeah, there's more tension if they respond to her. There's more, you'll have to use them a little bit more if they respond to her.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I'm gonna like as we look at this little piece here, you also want Sullivan responding to her,
Hmm.
which means we need her responding more. Because right
Okay.
now, it really is like the Carter show. It's
Okay.
like until she takes over on the next page. It really is. So, for example, he says, like, it certainly didn't go the way I planned. That's her talking. Go to King City, set up a little support group, have some downtime, right? Well, I can say we're all relieved to hear that, aren't we? He chuckled. That's an interesting line because she's like, it didn't go how I planned. And he's like, well, I'm happy that happened. Is that how you meant that to be?
Um, I'll have to think about that
Okay.
because so what happened earlier in the day was there was an attack by the powered people
Okay.
that was foiled by one person in particular, and so Trudy wasn't planning on arriving in the middle of this event that got attacked. And she was there.
Gotcha.
So that kind of is but maybe I can make that a little more. It might flow with the scenes before it. Like it might make sense with the
It's a
context.
it's a great line. She has to address it if you keep it, because it is so like unclear, because she's like, it
Yeah.
certainly didn't go the way I planned. And then she's thinking like, oh, life is easy. And then he's like, well, we're really happy it didn't go how you planned. She needs to have a professional internally. She needs to be like, what the fuck does that mean? Internally, that's like internally, she needs to be all right. Like, and then externally, she needs to be like, what do you mean by that?
Okay.
Right. Like, but I would have her, this is a great moment to give us that internal external
Okay.
contradiction between her, where internally she's like, I can't believe this a-hole. And then or like she's like, well, that like internally you might want her to be like, well, that was incredibly clumsy. And then have her externally be like, what do you mean by that? And like to push him.
Okay.
And then I would have you have Chief Sullivan. Chief Sullivan almost cracked a smile, but kept his unwavering gaze on Trudy. I'd have him speak here, right?
Okay.
And you want him challenging her in some way. Like, fascinating that you showed up just in time for
Yeah.
to save the powered people escape. And then, have the detective next to him leaned in with his notepad to take notes on what I said. Like, that's where you want like Keystone cops getting involved in their nonsense. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. And because here she says, how encouraging. And he says, I believe in clearing the air up right front. You must be perfectly aware that your organization was brought in over objections. So here we have a new start to the segment,
Okay.
right? They're talking about her now. So this segment is about, sorry, let me do this. And I am going to start typing, Faye, and I'll send this to
I'm
you.
sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. It's me that's a mess. This is one segment here
Okay.
where in the yellow, we're talking about the day, right? So you want to get Alex in here being aggressive, and you want to get at least one of the Keystone Cop chorus people moving. And then you're going to want to have, Alex say something about like, interesting that you showed up right in the middle of this thing, and then have Carter recover, right?
Okay.
It was fantastic that were really like, we wouldn't have known what to do without you. And then you can keep her line, how encouraging. The hair on the
Okay.
back of my neck pricked. Right. Now we're coming into the second segment. So you got to make it clear that this is Alex talking, because we've got that. And this second,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah,
Okay. Yep.
this new segment is about who she is and what's going on.
Hmm.
And again, we want to get all the players in. So you have Alex, you have her, you have Alex, you have Carter. And then here, Carter changes the subject. Your next segment is, of course. He blows off. I wouldn't break it this way. I'm just separating the segments as they take place in the dialogue. So this is
Okay.
your next
Yep.
big segment here. We will make this one green. No, it never does what I want it to. There we go.
There we go. That's
Yeah.
green. That's really
Yeah,
green.
it's green now. So that is really green. See that from Mars. So here again, we want them all participating in the segment. You have
Okay.
Alex kicking it off.
Yeah. It's just between the two of them basically in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Carter comes in here at the end, but we need to get the Keystone Cops in here,
Okay.
right? They got to move.
Okay.
And then she has to think. And if you
Can,
move,
would it be would it be too over the top to have one of them like to have the one with the recorder like banging on the recorder because he's not working?
I mean, I'd try it and see how it comes out. I would alternate them. So if this one you have the one in the back behind her move, then this one
Mhm.
have the one with the recorder move.
Okay.
If you have the one with the recorder move here, have the one in the back moved here. And there's a lot of things. If you do use the recorder, there's a lot of things you can do with it. He can lean forward and push it closer to her, right? Like he
Yeah.
can can kind of like jingle it to make sure it's working. There's all kinds of fun things he can do with that. If you want to keep him with just a notepad, pen clicking is good.
Oh, clicking pen.
Leaning forward to taking notes where he like gazes down at her like he's very fascinated in what she's gonna say, right? Like
Mm.
whatever prop you give that dude. The guy behind her needs
The guy,
to,
yeah,
oh,
he's eating rice out of a takeout container.
yeah, so he probably needs to make some noises.
Yep,
Like, and I wouldn't give him words, just gonna like, the cop behind her said,
yep. And
right?
and then recorder cop has to tell him, don't eat it, don't take all of it.
Yeah, yeah. And you can have them if you want them more comical, get them interacting with each other.
Okay. Yep.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, but I would just play with it. I would be careful never to make them the scene. Part
That'd
of
be
what happens with hazard characters is we start to like them, so we
too
make them into the scene. Yeah.
too tempting.
Yeah, it is. Well, they're fun. Like they start to
Mhm.
become comical and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this would be fun too." And then the tone of the scene changes. Um okay, so I want this is your next segment. But even when it happens, this is a bit of a frying pan, wouldn't you agree? Right? Because he's shifted
Mhm.
the topic of the conversation into talking about the back to the event of the day. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yep.
Um, and here's where she takes over. So Carter glanced at the chief and then returned his attention to Trudy. Trudy makes this statement:
Yep.
You mean it's urgent to find who's behind the attack at the school today, right?" I would give her some kind of internal
Yep.
moment here where she's like, I'm done with this bullshit.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like this is enough. And because now we're moving to the end of the scene.
Is
Does
it
that
too much for her to reach over and turn off the recorder?
She could totally do that. It's a
Okay.
power move, right?
Yeah.
Like, and this is the moment where she's like, all right,
Okay.
I'm actually in charge of this moment.
So yeah, so I'll put a big red star there so I know that's where she turns the
This
because
is
I
where she
wanted
turns
her
the tide.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted her to turn the tide and I wasn't, I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, it's great. You do a good job of her return it like turning the tide. And it's a good, you definitely put them on their heels. I think up here, if in these segments up here you have them trying to be more intimidating, when she turns the tide, the reader's really gonna feel it. Does that
Okay.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, and I can also add more of her internal that she's just trying to figure them all out first before she sort of steps
Oh,
in.
that's great. You could actually have her labeling them if you wanted to do that. Where
Yeah.
she's like, oh, this
Oh,
is the
yeah.
guy that blah blah blah. This is the guy that blah blah blah. Um, that's a character voice thing though. If she's labeling people, it's something she's gonna do all the time. So I don't know. You may not want to do that.
Yeah, I'll think about how to, but yeah, I can have her, she's still gonna try and figure them out, right? Like this,
Yeah,
oh, okay, this is like that guy from from Boston and
yeah, yeah. I've been in this before.
yeah.
There's back in Boston, maybe it was New York. I don't know.
Yeah,
All
so
these,
it
all
kind of
these, all these cops feel the
yeah,
same. Yeah.
gives
This,
her yeah, and it gives her the like it gives her more dimension, right? More history.
yeah, it gives her more dimension. It helps us get to know her more, helps us get to
Mhm.
see her as this kind of like weathered veteran who's just kind of sick of all this crap. Um, Once she takes over, your vocalizations get really great. What they're all saying is really good. Um, I really like this line. Actually, we've been discussing what we can do for you, to lighten up the burden a little bit, show cooperation. Show it to who? Trudy glanced. Now here she gets a little off topic. You just got to decide
Okay.
if you want to keep it or not. If you keep it, they're going to have to respond to it. So she
Okay.
says, "Since you've already kept me waiting for over 2 hours, how else can I show cooperation to you gentlemen tonight?" Right? Because they're talking about them showing cooperation to someone else.
Right, right, right. Okay.
And then
Yep.
she's like, "How can I show cooperation to you?"
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So you just got to decide. And this is something you actually do with her voice, which I don't know if you're doing on purpose or not. You did it once up top too. She takes words that people uses and she reuses them in a different way.
Totally unintentional.
Okay. It's a nice thing. You might want to keep it because it's a very like manipulative thing to do in a conversation
Okay, yep,
where
excellent.
like,
Yep.
yeah, where she's like, they said the word cooperation, she recognizes what they're talking about, and then she just uses that word to change the subject.
The other way. Okay.
Yeah, what,
Yeah,
and she's like
I
bringing us
can,
back down. Yeah,
yeah, I can rewrite the sentence, but yeah, I would still try and use that then.
yeah.
Because
And when she does it, I like, if you keep it, when she does it, they all need to have a moment because she pivots the conversation here really hard. They're talking about what they are doing and they're in charge. And then she's like, what am I supposed to do right now? Let's pivot. But she does it by using that word. She does it in a very graceful way. It makes it sound like she's talking about the same thing they're talking about, but she's actually not. So here you have another topic change,
okay, yep.
right? Like this is if you'd said like, you're going to put this one in red, this is the like, she's taking
That's where she
control.
turns the tables. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you need them responding to how she took control.
Okay,
Sullivan
so
clears his throat and leans forward. First order of business is to get records of everyone who is at the event today. So he's trying to like pull it back to where he was up here, which is
back to
like,
his,
we're
yeah,
running this.
back
She,
to his wheelhouse. Yeah.
yeah, she immediately takes it. Right here, you've got lean forward almost imperceptibly. You've got a nice like, here's how they do, but I wouldn't make it almost imperceptibly. Like, make it big. We're not going to see these guys again. Like, so give us something big with them.
Yeah, actually, and if she turns the recorder off, the other guy, he could grab it and try to fumble with it.
Yeah, you can try to turn it back on, right? Yeah, true. And then she could turn it off again, right? Like it could be a like, or she could just take it,
Yeah,
right? Like
she'll
that would be
just,
another. Yeah, just put it in her pocket. Um, but yeah, so in here she's doing that thing again.
okay.
He's talking about what they need to do, and she's like, including me, right? Like she's pulling it back to, if you had the like, the first order of business to get all the record sorry, to get on the record the statements of everyone who is at the event today, right? The way she would do it up here was like, you want me on the record, right? Like, because she's changing, using his words to pull it back to what she wants to talk about, which is why she's here. But this exchange between her and Alex is great. And then again, you have Carter coming in here as part of his voice to flip the segment.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
is part of what he's doing all throughout this piece. Is you'll notice he always appears at the end of the segment to kind of try to take back control of the conversation. So he comes back in here at the end to flip the segment, which is a nice, again, it's part of what makes his voice and her voice different, is that Trudy is responding to what happens. She's letting other people act, and then she responds to what they do. Whereas his pacing is more about he's taking action. He's a very like active participant in a conversation. Does that make sense? So if you were building a voice chart for him under that like pacing or like, uh amount per segment, you're going to want him always at the end, always starting new segments, and you want him talking in every segment, right? Like
Okay.
he's never going to sit silent in a
No.
conversation. Yeah. This line I would break between the two of them.
Okay.
So Carter hesitated. She could see the calculations. Of course, we're going to talk. Of course, we're going to talk to everyone, no matter their social political station. No stone left unturned, as it were. So this line, no stone left unturned, as it were, kind of plays, it's in agreement with what he's saying, but it's also like a wink and a nod of like, not really. So I would break it. I would probably give this opening to Alex because he takes himself very seriously. It's the second line that's more a Carter line.
Okay.
It's like, no, you know how it is. Like that's what that last line is kind of saying, of like, come on, Trudy, you and me know we're not really doing that, right? Like it's that like, yeah. So it's a good come behind line for Carter to like
Okay.
retake the conversation.
Okay.
Um, Here you have Carter talking twice,
Yep.
which is I would just take that's another thing. I'd just take this and give it to him down here.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the fake sip of water. Trudy took a fake sip of water, placed her glass in the middle of the notepad. That's really nice. That's a nice, again, like nice power move. But yeah. Um, okay, any questions? So we're now coming to where she's about to walk out. Before we
Mhm.
get there, anything else you want to talk about these kind of battle scene, verbal
Um,
battle scene segments?
no, you've given me a lot to work with,
Okay.
and yeah, a lot of help. Like, I just have to get the other characters in there more and get in her head a little more.
Yeah, I think it's great. Again here, she's gonna start flipping. She interrupts Alex here for the first time, and she
Mhm.
stands up. We need a moment of decision making here for her,
Right.
where she's like, I'm done. Right? Only because she's the POV character and we're in that third person close inside her brain, but we're
Okay.
not, it's not that first person, it's that third person. Like, I know the narrator's giving me her thoughts, but like Trudy Symptom, I would put it right before this because
Okay.
this is kind of the power move where she starts taking like hardcore taking over. So
Okay.
I would drop it here and have her think about something like, I've gotten everything I need out of this. There's nothing else here to
Right.
learn, or,
Okay.
like, this is tiring. Like I'm done with this
Yeah.
game, right? Like
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So you totally put me in mind of in one of the Avengers movies where Black Widow's like, I'm in the middle of an interrogation,
Yeah,
and
yeah, but she's done. She's like, all right, like I'm done, and then she wraps it up.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
okay,
a
I'm out of
great
here.
scene. Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, it's a good scene. Sorry, now I'm laughing about that scene.
I'm sorry.
No, no, it's great. It's a good scene. Um, but yeah, that would be a good one. The character in the Avengers that, sorry, I'm trying to put Trudy in my head there. She's very Samuel L. Jackson
Mhm.
in the
Fury.
Avengers. Yeah, Nick Fury. She's got that very Nick Fury attitude where he's like, she's not as verbally aggressive as he is. He's very
Mhm.
verbally aggressive, but they both share that, like, I've seen everything, I've done everything, and I just really need you
Yep.
guys to do what I want you to do. And I don't have time for this. He does this a lot. If you watch his segments and jokes, he'll get up and just walk away from conversations all the time. He does
Yep.
it all. He does it, and it is this like, I'm done. Like, I don't care if you're done or not, but I'm finished speaking to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good, if you want to
Yeah.
channel an Avengers character for her, I
Yeah.
would
And
channel
I'll
Fury.
probably build above maybe where she kind of is enumerating the information they're giving her as they go through the.
That's a power move as well. If you want her more observant, I like her just watching and
Yeah.
responding. If you want her voice to be more, I'm the boss here,
Hmm.
then she's gonna go. You could do it here instead of going all the way through. You could just do it here as a summary,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Tell you what, she stood up. Um, yeah, so I would put it right there. We just
Okay.
figured Chief Sullivan came out, and she's like, let me tell you what I'm seeing. And she'd be like, you brought me in here for this special thing. You guys don't actually have any. You're fishing, hoping to find something out from me. You're unhappy that I'm here. That's clear. And then you might even want to have her point out, like, and you're clearly intimidated by me. Otherwise, why would you have these two yahoos in here with you to do this? And then be like, and you're not planning to interview everybody, right? And then you can have her like, so tell you what, and then she can stand up and be like, why don't
Mhm.
we do this the right way? Like, you could definitely put that kind of summary here where she like pulls in that full power move of, I'm reading the whole room.
Okay.
Yeah. Um And his response, Alex's response here, I'm assuming this is Alex, but you got to tell me.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
no, you don't have to apologize. Alex's response, that's why we do this, to catch this stuff. Um, Alex's response here we need to, is great. Okay, now let's not get off topic here, right? Like he's trying to like pull her back. I'd give him some body language where he seems really
Mm,
frustrated, right? Like you don't get to just get up
stand
and
up and
tell me
walk.
that. Yeah. I'm the I'm the chief of detectives. Um, yeah, this is good. And then so now we have this new thing where Carter is going to chase her to the airport. Not to the airport. Why did I say the airport? Carter's going to chase her to the elevator.
Elevator.
Airport. Um, I don't know where that came from. So look and give me a second to explain. Um, I would back him down a little bit. I don't know why that went is kind of a like flustered moment. I don't
Okay.
think you want Carter ever flustered,
Okay.
right? This is just a big misunderstanding. Is more of that gaslighting you're going to want him to do where he's like, no, you're
Yeah.
misinterpreting what's going on.
Okay.
Which is like perfect for smarmy characters. Have him gaslight people with a smile all the time. It's the worst. So I would take this, okay, explain yourself. That's a little direct for her.
Okay.
I'd pull it. She's already had her moment up here. She
Okay.
doesn't need another one. She's just trying to leave.
Okay.
So, but the hands on the hips is a nice power stance. So I'd lose the, okay, explain yourself. I'd keep the, she turned to him, hands on hips. Was that a little power play or simply making sure you had a couple friendly witnesses when I refused to be questioned? That's another nice, like, I see past your game and I'm going to note your game and then I'm going to make you respond to your game. This is really good. Um, yeah, this is another one of those places where she uses his word, but she uses it completely differently. Alex is supposed to be your liaison, but frankly, I was concerned how he'd do the job, how seriously. And then I just added he'd take it just to make it clear. And then she says, seriously screwed up, I'd say. So like she's taking that word and like she's talking about this situation. He's talking about Alex. She's talking about the situation. She just left. So it's a nice like bend of that word that makes her voice fun. Um, and then her stepping through the elevator is great. Like it ends really strong.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
yeah. And giving him the last word, I would try to give him the last word whenever possible because he's always going to take it. He's always going to take that like I'm going to say the last word in a segment and start new segments at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the dude who's always sending you a reply email at 2 in the morning.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Reply email at 2 in the morning, and if you respond at 2:30, he's not going to respond until 9. Right? Like it's that
Yep.
kind of like I respond on my own time schedule,
Yep.
but I am going to control the conversation. Yeah. Okay. Anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to cover?
Um, no, I think you've given me some great ways to add more depth to the scene. So
Nice.
that's what I wanted.
How
Yeah.
are you feeling about jumping back into it? Does having this kind of like conversation around it help motivate you to get back into it? Or are you
Oh,
like, oh, I'm going to
yeah,
close it again?
because I have to go fix it.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
that's what I was hoping when I signed up for the session. I was like, oh, it's you know.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
I'm
and I
glad.
thought I'd try something different than what we've done before, because like I've given you more polished scenes in the past, and
Okay, so Faye, first off, if this is an unpolished scene, every writer listening just got really mad because they're like, "This is a really good." Yeah, so
well, okay,
you should have more confidence. It's a great scene.
okay, well, thank you.
Yeah. It's but you have a lot of tools there to make it, I think, a really dynamic introduction to her,
Yeah,
which is going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, and I'm still, I'm still having ups and downs on days when I actually like even could open the file, but I think I'm
Of
gonna just
course.
start by setting a schedule, a couple days a week, and
Yeah, whenever I find that I haven't written for several months and I'm like, I gotta start going back in it again. Um, there's two things that help me. One is setting a like, okay, I'm writing it this day at this time. And another thing is setting a deadline. This has to be done by this time. It just
Mhm.
depends on what motivates you. But for me, having the deadline really helps. The problem is I slide the deadlines, so that's not helpful. But having deadlines helps like pick things back up. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna stop the recording. We can chat a little
Okay,
bit more.
great.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. This was great.